Welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. Well, today we have the pleasure of doing a hangout with Chef AJ and friends. We wanted to call it the Vegan View, but apparently that's taken. We did some shows around the holidays just to help support people in their journey towards either eating plant-based or, trying to stay on track. And we had a lot of positive feedback. We actually received a lot of emails saying, when are these girls coming back? Well, they're busy. I mean, three of us are doing a coaching course, and we got lives, but we're here for you today because we started the Lose Weight with a Full Plate program today. And by the way, the cart was supposed to close yesterday at midnight, but people begged us to keep it open till midnight today because people didn't know they were going to relapse on Easter and need the program today, or they forgot to join. We ideally wanted to do this yesterday, but it was Easter and it was a holiday. So we're here to talk about being perfect and whatever that means in the plant-based world or in the SOS-free world, because there's people think I am perfect, I think, and I'm not. I'm not Goldhammer, and none of you are, thank God. One of him is enough. We love him though. And we're gonna spill the beans about, from real life. And we want you to know that you don't have to be perfect to be plant-based, and we're not. So that's that. How many of you girls here are perfect? Raise your hand. Yet you've had some success not being perfect?
True.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Are you guys familiar with episode 161 of the Beat Your Jeans podcast?
Yes.
I feel like everyone should listen to that before watching this show, because I feel like what's that saying from Voltaire? Don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. And especially with people that are starting the program today, they need to let go of the expectation that they need to be perfect, because people have succeeded in many things in life, including weight loss, including management food addiction, without being perfect, whatever perfect means,
AJ, you have a saying that I learned from you that I really like, and it's a very simple one. And it's, you say, do your best and bless the rest. And I really like that, because sometimes we can do better and sometimes we don't do as well, but we just have to keep going.
Right. I learned that at the Optimum Health Institute, and I love that saying. And the other saying that I think I coined and I love, especially because so many people, no matter how much I try not to be Batman, and by Batman, I mean, I think about Adam West, who was so handsome, and, Bruce, what was his name? Adam West. He played Batman. And then he could never get another job at all, like maybe on the Love Boat. It's like, I feel like I've been pigeonholed in this weight loss space, but I have other interests. I do other things. I do stand-up comedy and improv, and I do art, and I'm a pastry chef. And it's like, people they freeze you in one moment of time. And so then they see me, I posted a dessert, and it's like, well, that's unacceptable. Like, for who?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always tell people, and you guys know this saying too, if your goal is weight loss or anything, do the least restrictive program you can do that'll get you the results you seek. It's like, if somebody's going to pay you a certain amount of money for working 40 hours a week, why work 80? That's how I look at it. And if you can do a more lenient program, do it,
Yeah, and that's so true. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I was going to say it's so true, because sometimes people, like you said, they are so focused on trying to be perfect, and they can get themselves into what Dr. Lyle calls the ego trap. And I know that you were talking about episode 161 of the Beat Your Jeans podcast, where I believe that's where he does talk about that quite a bit. And I've done this to myself before, where I've thought, well, if I can't do whatever this thing is 100% perfectly, then I'm just not going to do it at all. And, the saying is like, you kick over the cart before, you even start. So, so I completely agree with doing the least restrictive thing you can to get the results, whatever the results are that you want. And the results that you want might not be the results that somebody else wants for you or thinks you should have, but in the end, it's, what you want is what matters.
Yeah. Well, maybe we should talk about ways that we're not perfect, or people, the thing about the plant-based community, I find that they're not always welcoming to people that feel a little bit different or eat, it's like, I always compare it to sort of like Judaism, because I was raised Orthodox Jew. I'm ethnically Jewish. I'm kind of more non-denominational now in my faith. But the thing is like, even the factions of Judaism didn't get along, because they had the Orthodox and the conservative and the Reform and the, what were they called? the Hasidic Jews and the reconstruct. I mean, there was, and it's like nobody got along. And it's like, I feel like with veganism, it's like people look at like the I'm not saying they're the top, but I mean, people look at like, the people that are raw vegan or 80-10-10. And then there's the, the SOS free vegans, and there's the oil free vegans. And then there's, the junk food vegans, and people are constantly criticizing each other for this. And to me, I'm an ethical vegan first and foremost. I would be, if you showed me a study today that said if I don't eat animal products, I'm going to die. I'm not going to eat. I'm like George Bernard Shaw. So yes, I feel like the vegan diet, when done correctly, is the healthiest diet for your health and also for the planet. But that's not what got me into it 47 years ago. I didn't even know it was healthy till about like 20 years ago.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I'm in the exact same place. I stopped eating animals for the animals, and I wasn't at all concerned with my health. I wasn't even thinking about my health. I was 21 years old. So, it really wasn't an issue until decades after that. Although along the way, I started to learn a whole lot about, how good plants were for you and how bad animals were for you. And the last part that I found was what I found when I ran into Chef AJ, which was the whole salt, oil, sugar. And for me, probably oil was the big issue there. It was the fat, rather than the salt or the sugar, although they're mostly always in some combination. But still, in terms of getting healthier and losing weight for both my husband and myself, it was really the oil. And the perfection part of it didn't have to do with the ego trap. It wasn't a question of, if I can't do it perfectly, I won't do it at all. For us, it was just a question of, for a long time, we were focused on eating to the left of the red line. And we kept beating our head against a brick wall as far as not being able to stick with that. And when we didn't stick with it, we didn't stick with it in a really big way. So what we needed to do was find some sort of compromise that wasn't so far in the direction of eating to the right of the red line that it sabotaged our weight loss efforts. And we did finally figure out what that was for each of us, for my husband and me. And, I'm losing weight at a very slow rate, but I have now lost between 13 and 14 pounds since the beginning of December.
Yeah, your face. I can see it in your face.
And we have not had dessert in all of that time. And that was our big oil in eat out. When we would eat out, eating out and having oil was a big thing for us, but the bigger thing was desserts. And it wasn't a question of we bought it with our regular groceries. It was a question of at 11 o'clock at night, we'd go out and get something. We would deliberately say, screw this. I want something really rich and sweet. And even though after we ate it, it didn't really satisfy us and we didn't like it, and we'd say, we're never going to do this again, we would go back to that. Well, we got to eat to the left of the red line, and we'd be right back there, going out at 11 o'clock for some Numinos or Fig Newmans, or a piece of vegan carrot cake with, a lot of oily frosting. It's all vegan, but killer, literally killer from a health perspective. And so I'm now at a weight that I haven't seen since 1991 for the first time.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did any of you watch the show today with Dr. Lau? Because what he said about the environment, about how, if it's still, what were the words he was using about if you know you can get it?
The out of season.
Out of season. I love that.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite concepts that he teaches about, actually, and that has been one thing that has really helped me, is that the foods that are like Jesse's talking about, that they need to be out of season for me. Because as soon as I have it, it's stirred back up in my mind. AJ, you told the story about was it nachos or something that you'd had?
I know, and so now they're in season again, because I saw them, that they're available up here, and it's like, and so I'm like thinking, oh, I'll never eat them because I don't eat, chips with oil and salt. And so the owner of the restaurant said, oh, well, you can bring your own baked chips in and we'll make them for you. And I'm like, oh, why do you have this? Because now all I think about is nachos, I love that concept of out of season.
Yeah.
So I think this topic resonates with a lot of the live viewers because Mona's saying she struggles with perfection and beats herself up when she feels she's failed. But I'm not sure how you can fail, because fail at what? And if you have any questions, I mean, I've been an open book. I will tell you, I've never been perfect. People think I'm this clone of Goldhammer, and they've called me Goldhammer Light. But even though I teach an SOS-free diet for specific reasons for specific people, and I write my recipes that way, so here's how I feel. You can always add sugar, oil, salt to any recipe you want, but by writing them that way, I can get included in places like the True North Health Center, be welcome to teach there, or the NHA, and write books. It's very easy to add sugar, oil, and salt. It's harder to take it away or make recipes take good with it without it. But I don't think I've ever been 100% salt-free. It's so unrealistic, because in order to do that, that means that I will never, ever travel, eat at somebody's houses, or buy anything in a package again. And I've never done that. I personally don't add salt to my food.
Right.
We have salt in our house, not for company. We have Epsom salt, but I don't think you can cook with that. So, I don't have Epsom salt and tamari and, those cocoa aminos or miso. I have nothing against it, but I just don't use them. But I'm too lazy to make all my own condiments. And while I do love Dylan's products, many of them have things that don't agree with my stomach. I'm allergic to black pepper, which is in many of his sauces. And also a lot of his products have nutritional yeast. And also I'm cheap. And I know how to make my own ketchup, mustard, and barbecue sauce. They taught us that in culinary school, barbecue sauce probably being the easiest. But I'll tell you, it tastes better when it has salt. It just does. And the thing is, it's not like I'm using it every meal or every day, a couple of meals a week. Also same thing with salsa. I had Kathy Hester on the show. She showed us so many salt-free salsas, and that's fine. But when you make them fresh, they don't last. What people have to understand is salt is a preservative, and it's used for the addictive properties, perhaps by the processed food industry, but initially it was used because it is a preservative. It extends shelf life. So when I buy the Rayleigh salsa and I open it, it's there for a couple of months. When I make a homemade salsa, I've got to eat it in a couple of days. And so, I love the saying that Chef Terry used to say, condiment responsibly, and condiments are not the majority of my meals. They're barbecue sauce on the sweet potato burger. They're the salsa on whatever I'm putting salsa on. So I don't worry about it, especially because I've got the opposite problem. I've got really, really low blood pressure. And so, I'm not worried about it. I know that for some people that might be a deal breaker. Zena, you remember when you were in my in-person class, we're not going to mention her name, the lady that was so salt sensitive. One of the assistants actually put the tomatoes with the salt in, and she's like, but I don't think that's everybody. That's the thing. You have to know yourselves, meaning you, and all of you watching. You can't, another saying Dr. Lyle has is we can't paint everyone with the same brush.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that we've done is I took a hiatus, some time off, a sabbatical from moderating for Chef AJ with Susanna. And my husband and I both have a lot of projects that we've had to do here at home. And in order to keep me motivated, my husband agreed that we could eat out every day so that I didn't have to cook. We have been eating out this entire month, the month of March, and I still lost 2 pounds. Wow. So now we're lucky enough to have a restaurant where we can get steamed greens, steamed vegetables, steamed broccoli, rice, quinoa, steamed yams, spring rolls that are just fresh vegetables and tofu with nothing added in a rice wrapper. So that we've got options there, but we've also eaten out where there has been a little bit of oil and some salt. And we've succeeded. And not only that, but it hasn't pushed us into wanting a dessert. And that was kind of the thing. The oil would lead to dessert, or dessert would lead to oil, one way or the other. We'd bounce back and forth between the savory eating out that had oil and some sort of weird dessert craving at 11 o'clock at night. And it would just completely sabotage our weight loss efforts. We felt that this is the way we want to eat. We love our food. I do like to use spices and herbs. I don't like bland food, although I can sit down and eat an entire plate of steamed broccoli with nothing. So, it's not a question of not loving what I eat, but I do like a little bit of pizzazz and zing. So spices and herbs are my thing. And when we're eating out, there are some things that we are still allowing ourselves to eat that may have a little bit of oil. And when you're at a restaurant, we're lucky enough to be able to get no salt a lot of the times, but some of the times there's some salt. And it has not sabotaged our efforts this time because of this, because we're allowing ourselves vegan food, mainly unprocessed, to the right of the red line. And by that, I mean some avocados, some tahini. We're not dying when we get a little bit of oil out, and we're really working hard to eat better when we're out. And we've succeeded. I mean, it used to be that I would have gained 5 pounds this month of March eating out at a minimum. And instead I lost 2 pounds. So I'm really happy with that. And we've gotten a lot done this month. So
that's amazing. Well, it just shows you weren't, quote, whatever that means, perfect doing it. And people hold you to such a, not you, me, to such a high standard, you know, and it's, I don't like when people build me up, because then I'll fall down. And I make a post, like, for instance, I'm really into sushi now. I love it. But you know, and oh, chef, you eat white rice, and you know, you get these comments. Maybe you guys don't, because you don't have a social media page, but like, I can't believe you eat white rice because Dr. So-and-so says. And it's like with all due respect, and let me say it right here, I don't care what Dr. So-and-so says unless Dr. So-and-so is my doctor. So I have a doctor. His name is Dr. Neil Medley. He's the president of Weimar. He's a plant-based doctor. He's awesome. And then I have a virtual doctor that I've used since I went to True North in 2010, Dr. Peter Sultana, who's been there. And if they told me not to eat white rice, I wouldn't eat white rice. But I don't not do something or do something because it was in a New York Times best-selling book by a popular influencer. I've never done that. And so, you know, it's like, oh, I can't believe you don't eat beans, Dr. So-and-so, you know, no, I don't do any of these acronyms and all these things that you have to do. You know, Dr. Lau talks about how a lot of people that are in what he calls the hyper health arena, myself included, are HCNCs, hyper conscientious nutcases. And so I don't do that. There's certain things that I won't cross the line. And I know that's the same for you, Jesse, and for sure Zena, and maybe Susanna now is the newest vegan, is we don't eat animal products, no matter what. Like, I mean, if you offer us money, well, it depends, maybe a lot. No, I mean, I'm just kidding. But the thing is so, you know, we have a line in the sand for certain things. And I think probably it's easier for us because it's such an ethical concern that it's not like, well, you know, okay, so sugar, salt, and oil, there's really not an ethical concern there, you know? Right. It makes it, I think, harder, you know? I mean,
it's a health concern. It's a personal health concern. Right. And oil in particular is really a killer.
Yeah. Calorically dense, calorically density, whatever that word is. When people struggle with their weight, it's generally the fat. It's not the product, because sugar and salt by itself doesn't make people fat. It just doesn't. I mean, it's not great for you, but that's the thing. It's like, you know, and Dr. McDougall gets criticized too because he allows sugar and salt, but his program has helped countless people. There are some people that for that, the little bit of sugar, the little bit of salt, and maybe the flour is too, you know, too triggering or whatever. And then they need to do more of a Goldhammer plan. But like, why would you start with the most restrictive plan? You know, why do the least restrictive one you can do? And, you know, things can change, you know, over time. You know, when I was at the beginning of my weight loss journey, I dotted every I and crossed every T, and I did everything Goldhammer perfect. But if I don't have to do that, why would I continue to do that? Because I don't see the case of people living longer because they were perfect SOS-free vegans. And let me tell you something. Even the perfect SOS-free vegans are not SOS-free. Now, I'm not going to mention any names here, but since 2009, I've been at so many conferences and cruises and things, and some of your heroes out there don't eat that way. And I'm not going to say their names. Maybe I'll tell you guys privately, but some of these doctors, first of all, aren't even vegan when you actually see them like eating, and they're not SOS free. I mean, so they're not perfect. I have seen them eat a white bagel and white rice and drink a beer and all these things. You would be shocked at what I see behind the curtain. At least I'm willing to come forward and say it, you know? I mean, not that I've had any gross dietary indiscretions, but I really have loosened up the reins for what works for me. Kind of like, Jesse, you found what things you could, and I'm using this word loosely, get away with. And I did too. I know that I can't get away. Like Dr. Clapper has a saying, your body is never not looking. And anytime I try to reintroduce fat in the form of nuts and seeds, avocado's different. It's much lower in calorie density and higher in water. My weight goes up exponentially right away. I've tried and failed miserably, and working with Dr. Lyle, like 3 months, working on this. But, if I have a little bit of salt, and meaning in the condiments, I'm not adding it, or in a restaurant meal, or when I go to my neighbor's house, if I have a little bit of, bread, and when I say bread, I'm talking about like a pacha bread that's like, I don't know, it's not even this big, that I have once or twice a week. That is not a problem for me, And so I do it because,
big difference between where you are and I've been about a year now at the maintenance sort of phase where I think my weight loss has stopped and I'm into the clothes that I want to be fitting, and I'm happy, and I've stopped weighing myself. But I think when I was at the beginning, I very much did what you said. I did everything you said, and you do have to present the best possible scenario so that people know what they're striving for, because obviously what I was doing up till then wasn't working. And so for me, as at the beginning, and like the people starting the lose weight with a full program today, lose weight with a full plate program today, it's like, yeah, you do need to focus and do the neuroadapting and get yourself off of those foods. But that doesn't, oh, look at the kid here.
I know. we're all focused on the cat.
Yeah, that actually reminds me too, to just pick up on something that you guys talked about earlier is I actually came at this a totally different way. I came at this from the health perspective.
Yeah.
And this whole new world of ethical veganism is new to me, and I'm learning and I'm growing, and it's just interesting how we've come at it from different directions.
But the thing is, all three of you were able to cross your T's and dot your I's and succeed at what you were striving for, which was weight loss and getting healthier. And for me, trying to be as perfect as I could be was working against me.
Right. And that's why people have to know themselves. People have to know themselves. And that's where the saying, and again, I've been saying this since the beginning, but people only hear what they want to hear. Do the least restrictive program you can do that gives you the results you seek. Try it for what the thing is, Jesse, not you, but a person can't just eat one SOS free meal and say, okay, it's too hard. Right. You got to give it. That's why we do a 21-day program. You got to give it for more than one meal, because as Zena says, there's a lot of neuroadaptation that has to happen. But Dr. Lyle, and the thing is, when you do 2,000 shows, I can't always pinpoint, but he's talked about this, and I know he's talked about this in FFOF, that for some people, including certain foods to the right of the red line, not animal products, not necessarily even oil, but things of a little bit higher caloric density, like some tempeh, some tofu, some avocado, that can really help. The thing is the whole concept of left of the red line came from the frustration of teaching this stuff to a private client. And the idea is that it's not that you have to eat exclusively to the left of the red line, because if you did that, your diet would be really, really low in calorie density, and you would have to eat quite a lot of food, kind of like a Robbie Barbero who's eating 14 pounds of food. But the idea is that don't be afraid of the foods to the left of the red line, the fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, the starches. Those you can eat ad libitum, at least most people can. And so I can add a little avocado if I want to now. I don't keep it around though. Like if I'm going to have avocado in a sushi bowl, I go to Rayleigh's and I buy one avocado, the smallest one I can that's ripe, and that's 2 servings. That's me and Charles. So, but that can help a lot of people do that. Let's talk about where we're not perfect so people know that we're not perfect. So I eat white rice. It's my favorite. I eat salt if it's in condiments, restaurant food, and other people's food. Let's see. I don't eat beans ever, or nuts. I have not died from either of those, or seeds. I eat chia seeds because it's in things, but I don't worry about that. Actually, I don't worry about anything, really. I mean, I worry about things in life, but I don't worry about micronutrients or getting a certain amount of this or my selenium. I don't have a Brazil nut. What else do I not do? I mean, obviously I don't drink alcohol or I don't eat processed food, except, that's the thing. They keep inventing processed food that's kind of sort of compliant now, like with the pacha bread. And it's like, well, it's not too bad. That's how they get you, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do white rice also, AJ. I have brown rice at home, but I get white rice because my mother will only eat white rice. She doesn't like brown rice, no matter how I prepare it for her. So if I'm making rice and I'm making it for both of us, it's just, I'm just lazy. And so I'll just make white rice for both of us. And you know what? That's what I grew up eating, and that's what I really like. But I eat it differently now, where I don't put oil on it, and I usually do not put any salt on it. But occasionally I will use like a hot sauce, and I'll only use like a few drops because I don't like a lot of heat, but I want like maybe a little bit of heat. And I'm not even using a teaspoon. I'm probably using, I don't know, maybe an eighth of a teaspoon of it. And that, it's got a little bit of salt in it, so it's not a big deal. I'm kind of like you with avocado. If I went out somewhere and I got a salad and there was like a slice or two of avocado on the salad, I could eat that without too many repercussions. But if I have avocados at home, we used to have an avocado tree in the backyard, and it had the best avocados. And if I'd pick some to take some to work, bags of them, because I didn't want them to go bad. And when I picked those and I had them in my house, it was not a problem for me to eat 4 or 5 of them in a single sitting. 4 or 5 big avocados. That's a lot of avocados. So when I'm saying, like, when I'm telling people to know yourself, I know that I could go somewhere and there could be a few chunks of avocado on something, and it's not going to be the be all end all for me. But if I bring avocados home, it's going to be a major problem.
Yeah.
So and some people can, I mean, I will buy like an avocado for my mom because she likes it. And she is somebody, you talked about that one time, like how many people will cut up, an avocado into 5 pieces and only eat 1 piece. I've got one, my mom, that's who'll do it, but not me. And if I get next to those 4 other pieces, they're gone, I'm telling you. So it's, it's again, kind of knowing yourself. I also wanted to mention something that you were saying earlier about, doing the least restrictive program, because they work, guys. I mean, they really do. And for some people, they're going to work way better than something that might be more restrictive. Again, it just goes back to knowing yourself. I started out with the standard McDougall program. It's a fantastic program. I cannot say enough good things about it. I love Dr. McDougall. I still consider him my doctor, even though he's officially retired. I've called him my doctor for the last 21 years now. And I won't say anything bad about the McDougall program. It is fabulous. It's probably the best thing out there. But for some people, and I lost a lot of weight on that. I also, in a very short period of time, I reversed all my diseases and got off all my medications. So you can't say anything bad about it. But I actually started feeling even better because of that kind of that brain, that brain chemistry thing, that when I did get rid of the sofas and did the McDougall maximum weight loss program, which is closest to your program, AJ. And that really, I felt better with that overall, because it kind of quieted that brain thing where I was always like seeking out food. But if I fall off that, then I'm back to doing the regular McDougall program. The one thing I won't eat animal products. I won't. And will I slip and eat oil sometimes? My problem is I do have processed vegan items in my home for my mom. I do try to stay out of them. Occasionally I slip up, and then it's problematic for me because it's back in season, the way you guys were talking about. And I've heard Dr. Lyle say this again. And when it's in season, some of us who do have that kind of crazy brain thing going on, if we get it back in season and don't get out of it fast enough, it can become a huge problem. And it has for me in the past many times. It's like I've fallen off, gotten into that. Sometimes it's taken me weeks, months, possibly years to get back on track. And during that time, I've gained back some weight. I've never gained back the whole 100 and whatever I lost, 102 or 105 pounds. I've never gained it all back. I have gained back, though, at various points in times over the last 20 years. I've gained back anywhere from like 30 to 35 pounds and lost it again, and then gained some of it back and lost it. I've been really honest about that. My path has not been a steady path. But if I allow myself too much of that, stuff, it can become very, very problematic for me. But the thing that I notice about salt, like when I put like a few drops of that hot sauce on my rice, I like it better.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah.
I start liking it way better than when I
Anytime there's
don't
salt in
have
the food, you like it
Yeah.
way better. My
I
brain.
start liking it a lot better. So yeah. So again, it's like you have to know yourself. And I know that I can't, I deliberately will not use it on every time I have rice, I will not I deliberately will not use it, because if I do, then I only want rice with it on, with that hot sauce on it. So yeah. But yeah, those are some of my things that I've
Your guilty pleasures. But
shared.
I agree with you. It's like I can when there's salt or fat or sugar in the food, it's like
Oh,
I mean that's the whole purpose is we like it more because it was more valuable to our ancestors. And I know right away, especially with the fat in the food, it's like it's a question of this is good and this is really good.
I know.
And the thing is obviously, well, not obviously, but if I couldn't have what some people might call indiscretions, I hate that word cheats because I don't feel like they're cheats because who am I cheating? If it was affecting my weight or my blood pressure, that'd be a different story. But it seems like I can get away with it, and maybe not always. It could become a problem. I mean, it's something I watch. And I have regular sessions with Dr. Lyle, and I talk to Goldhammer a lot. And I'm kind of like running an experiment with it. But, I at some point, like I want to be able to live in the real world and not be afraid of every single drop of sugar, fat, and salt that goes into my mouth,
Yeah. Yeah. I was just going to mention one other thing. How we were talking about how we came to this, and I'm kind of like a hybrid between both, the ethical and the health, because I was actually really interested in just being an ethical vegan. And when I was looking at becoming a vegetarian, and the day that I started researching vegetarianism, and this is back in probably 2000, 1999 or 2000. I think it was in 2000. And when I started researching vegetarianism, which I knew very little about, I found the word vegan. And when I found the word vegan, and then when I read about that, I was like, that's what I want to be, because I had already stopped wearing leather, which is kind of a weird thing because most vegans stop eating meat and dairy and animal products, and then they move on to they won't wear animal products in clothing, except use animal products in beauty care or healthcare products or cleaning products or whatever. But I had stopped wearing leather, like leather shoes and stuff, using leather purses, leather belts, because I was like, oh, that belongs to an animal. And so I really was backwards, and kind of that thinking. But when I learned what veganism was, I was like, that's what I want to be. And in that same thought, I discovered Dr. McDougall because he was linked on one of the websites that I was searching. And I was like, who's this guy? And so I discovered kind of the health aspect and the ethical aspect almost simultaneously. But I'll tell you guys, if Dr. McDougall came out and said tomorrow, I was wrong, animal products are actually necessary and healthy for you, I still wouldn't eat them.
I wouldn't.
I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it because it's like I've come to that point where I don't care if it's healthy or not. And I know it's not. I know deep in my, in my brain and my soul and my heart that animal products are not necessary, and therefore I don't need to cause any pain to any creatures. So I won't do it no matter what somebody comes out with. And I know Dr. McDougall is not going to ever say that, but if he did, I'm still going to be vegan. So
same here. And there are doctors that aren't our doctors, like Dr. McDougall, that are telling their patients that animal products are necessary and to go eat them,
Yeah.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Susanna?
Oh, I was just going to pick up on what you were asking about what kind of foods are sort of to the right of the red line for you. So for me, it's definitely been, since I've lost my weight, I've added back in tofu and tempeh, maybe twice a week. I've avocado, I'll buy one sometimes, but it's not something that I crave. I think one thing that I was going to say is that about knowing yourself is knowing what your trigger foods are. So for me, it's like one of them, I have several, but one of them is peanut butter. Like it's literally crack for me. I can't even have a little bit, or I'm just elbows deep in the peanut butter. And something that, I remember hearing people talk about this when I was new, and I couldn't understand how people could find dates a trigger, but once you've eliminated all the other things, that can become a trigger. And so what's been really interesting for me over this 3 or so year path that I've been on is, you know, eliminating the animal products, eliminating the salt, oil, and sugar, and then sort of seeing all of it as a big experiment. And so when I've, you know, slipped up and not been perfect, I really try to frame that for myself, that as an experiment. And I tried this, and wow, I didn't feel good when I had that dinner at that nice vegan restaurant like I thought I would. I thought it would taste really good, and in the moment it did, but then the stomach ache that I dealt with for hours later kind of reminded me like how far I've come and how my microbiome has adapted to eating really healthy food. And so, and then the other thing, I was going to just tell you this little story. So at Valentine's Day this year, like I have sailed through these holidays these last several years, but at Valentine's Day this year, I got into the candy that I bought for my kids, and I couldn't stop. And that really scared me, because it's the first time really since I started that I've really felt out of control again. And that was the worst part of it, was feeling out of control, because my brain is so calm now. And you know, it sounds kind of, we throw around that term, the calm, stable brain, all the time. But man, I sacrificed it. It was gone. And I was worrying about things. I was upset on things. I was on a Zoom call and blah, 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 like going crazy. Like, and that's not me. That's not how I feel anymore. So tonight is actually, our family was able to gather tonight for Easter. And so I was proactive this time. I made one of AJ's desserts. I made a chocolate mint mousse tort, I think it's what it's called. And I made it on Friday because I know what's going to be around here tonight. And I am better off to have a plan of something that is higher in caloric density than I typically have, but I can have a nice slice of that and give some of my family members will eat that and freeze the rest. And hopefully most of it'll be gone, because otherwise I'll be eating more of it tomorrow. But having a plan makes me feel better going into tonight. So just wanted to share that.
Well, it just shows you that no matter how long you've been compliant, the pleasure trap is real, and it's always there to bite us in the ass when we're not prepared or not looking.
Yeah.
Well, and if you notice, one of the things that Dr. Goldhammer and Dr. Lyle don't give you that neuroadaptation time for is sugar, because we never neuroadapt to not having sugar. Right. That is always going to be, it's always going to be there, because we live on sugar. Glucose is that's our energy source. So yeah, we can neuroadapt to no salt, and we can get to the point that we may not crave salt, and we can neuroadapt to no oil for sure. But that sugar thing is always going to be there. And that dessert thing, that not having desserts, since on December 7th, we fought off a gift box of candy. Were unable to get the person who was giving it to us to keep it, couldn't give it away to the other people in the room, brought it home, and we're going to throw it out. And we ended up eating a good part of that box. And on December 8th, we just decided this is it. We're not going to do this anymore. We've got to come up with a plan to be able to fend off our cravings for dessert. Yeah. And we did. We each found the thing that worked for us. And, you know, the other thing, though, that has really helped is that I make a very diluted tahini sauce using pears and applesauce and vinegar and mustard and dates and a little bit of tahini. And that is dressing or sauce for roasted cauliflower, for falafel, for whatever the heck we're having that needs a little bit of something for 4 or 5 days. And, you know, so you can stretch 2 tablespoons of tahini for 2 people for 5 days worth of meals. And it just gives us that little bit of satisfaction without ruining our progress on losing weight. And right now we're both healthy. We're older than you guys, significantly older than some of you guys. And we don't have that, that whole panoply of high blood pressure, high cholesterol, pre-diabetes or diabetes. I'm fat. I'm working on what I think will be 50 pounds. Richard is working on that last 15. This is harder for him in terms of his progress. I'm seeing more progress than he is because I've got further to go. But we're both succeeding. And because of having found Chef AJ's program, we've both maintained good health. And that, that was the primary thing. But for me, the weight loss thing was also a secondary primary. And that was where I was banging my head against the wall. And, I have finally come up with something that's working for me. And I needed to realize that I was afraid if I didn't eat to the left of the red line, I wouldn't lose weight.
See, but then you weren't being perfect.
Sabotage myself.
You needed to be imperfect, if you will,
Yeah.
Now, Jessie, did you come up with this plan on your own, or did somebody help you?
I did come up with this plan on my own, and I have AJ and Susanna know the particular thing I found that helped me. And it's not something I'm going to mention or recommend. I definitely would not recommend it to anybody else because it's a very, I'm sure that each of us has a very unique thing that will work for us. We just need to find it. So this isn't going to be a panacea or a help for the majority of people, but it sure as heck worked for me.
Yeah, because what you mentioned it's like, I don't even like that food. So it's not,
right.
So it's not going to work if you don't like it.
Well, actually, I don't like it that much, but that it worked for two reasons for me. Because I've also been heartburn free since I included this particular additional food in my diet. And it makes no sense to anybody. I've discussed this with Dr. Lyle. This doesn't really make any logical sense, but nevertheless, I was dealing with almost 40 years of severe heartburn that was getting worse and worse. And I'd gotten to the point where it was another thing that was also tipping me over the edge in terms of food, because we did 23 days of steamed kale, steamed broccoli, and baked potatoes, and I had heartburn the whole damn time. And it had really gotten to the point where it was kind of like, why am I trying? So I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. This is working for me right now. I think I had said to you, AJ, that truthfully, if I had a choice between not having heartburn and staying where I am at my weight right now, I would take the not having heartburn, because it had gotten to be, such a hugely painful and debilitating thing. So I'm pretty happy with these last 4 months since December 8th.
Nice. Well, it's great when you find what works for you. And for people that can't figure it out on their own, like a session with Dr. Lyle can be very, very valuable. And that's why treating things as an experiment, like we're doing with this 3-week program, can be helpful, because maybe that wasn't the first thing you tried, perhaps.
I have to say that we scheduled a session with Dr. Lyle a month in on this to tell him what we were doing and just to get his feedback on the situation, because we weren't actually kind of believing what we were seeing in terms of results, and me in particular, how I was feeling as far as the heartburn. But I had been trying to eat to the left of the red line only since 2017, when I, found Chef AJ's program. And this is definitely the way I want to eat. I just needed to move a little bit more to the center and not try to do something I was incapable of doing, which backfired on me. And I thought I needed to do that in order to succeed, and I was wrong. You can do Chef AJ's program at the red line rather than to the left of the red line. And I think Dr. Lyle had talked about averaging things out so that you're at the red line rather than exclusively to the left of the red line. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm going to sit down and eat a pound of walnuts or anything like that. It just means that I am including a food that was not to the left of the red line that's working for me.
Yep. And okay, so now everybody is familiar with the red line, and Sheila, who's watching live, is asking what it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just for a minute put this in speaker mode and hold up the back of my book, the calorie density chart. So maybe you can screenshot or just
and everybody should get Chef AJ's Secrets to Ultimate Weight Loss. I mean, it is the prescription, the plan that will work. You know, I misinterpreted what I needed to do. I misunderstood what I needed to do.
Right. It wasn't that you have to eat exclusively to the left of the red line always and forever. But there's things to the right of the red line that as ethical vegans we avoid, like dairy and animal products, which are to the right of the red line. And as people that are trying to have arterial health and lose weight, oils, for example. But the things that are to the right of the red line that are healthy whole plant foods would be things like avocados, nuts and seeds being much more calorically dense than avocados, for example. But there's things that I always, now when I think back, I always included these, not in large amounts, but even when I was losing weight, for example, corn tortillas, which are 1,100 calories a pound. I wasn't sitting there eating corn tortillas every day, but in some of my recipes, like the enchilada strata that called for like 6 tortillas, these things were in my recipes, even dates. I wasn't sitting there eating dates, but they were in recipes. And again, you know, tortillas, 1,100 calories per pound, dates, 1,300. But it's interesting how you talked about how can dates be a trigger for some people? I can have medjool dates and deglet nor dates everywhere in the house. I will never eat them. They're for recipes. But if you put a bari date in my face, it's in my mouth because I mean, I'm like a date snob. I'm a vanilla snob now. Like just regular dates are not like medjool and deglet nor you use those in recipes, but if you've ever had a bari date, you know what I'm talking about because that tastes like a Kraft caramel. So yeah. So here's let me. There's some questions in the chat or some comments. About like the Ninja Creamy, you know, and you know the thing is everybody has to know what works for them. And thank you for your nice comment, Evelyn, about here that we're all human and not perfect and living in the real world. But somebody's saying that since they think the Ninja Creamy is a problem because then they're eating more fruit, and it's not fruit per se that's the problem because fruit has a caloric density of 200 to 300 calories per pound. The problem might be that when you eat fruit, you eat a certain amount of fruit, but when you eat fruit ice cream, you generally eat more because it tastes better. So, you know, whereas you could maybe, like I've eaten 2 bananas in a sitting and I'm not, you know, they vary in size, but when you're making it into banana ice cream, it's easy to eat 4, 5, and 6 because it's now a creamy cold confection, you know? I think you got the Ninja Creamy and then returned it, right, Zena?
No, well, it never got to my house. I bought it and there was a shipping problem and they were going to send me another one or something. And I was like, no, never mind, cancel it. This is a sign. This is a sign it shouldn't come because you're exactly right. When you're blending the fruit, you're actually reducing the overall volume. So you can get a lot more fruit inside of you because like you were saying, AJ, you could eat a couple of bananas with, you know, just eat them. But if you blend them, that amount reduces down and now you can have like 4 or 5 or 6 bananas much more easily. I find that with all fruit and fruit also. I'm somebody who can't stop eating fruit. I love fruit and I could eat 10 to 20 pieces a day if I like let myself do that. So,
but has it been a problem for you either in terms of your triglycerides or weight? Because it's funny that you say that because I like savory now more than sweet. And so I don't really have a problem with fruit, but if the watermelon's in season, it's good. I'll eat an entire watermelon, not in one sitting, but one day, but then I'm just peeing all night. It's like, it doesn't seem to affect me, but do you find it's a problem for you, Zena, when you have too much fruit?
It can be. I couldn't get my triglycerides down until I cut down my fruit intake. But then later on, I found I could eat a little bit more. I mean, I couldn't eat like 20 pieces and get, you know, keep going and do. I mean, I could do that in a day or two, but like I couldn't do it like every day without it affecting my triglycerides. But you know, I could, instead of eating 1 or 2 pieces of fruit a day, I could eat 3 or 4 pieces of fruit in a day and still be fine. I think what Susanna said earlier is really true. You kind of have to get to where you need to go And in order to get there, you might have to be more restrictive in the beginning to neuroadapt and to find out how you feel in that mode. And then after you get there, then you can see, well, like everybody's talking about, can I don't want to say get away with, but can I loosen up the reins? Can I loosen up the screws just a tiny bit? And how much can I do it? Oops, I did it too much. Tighten them back up a little bit. Oh no, that's working. Okay, that's actually helping me. Like Jesse's discovered, adding some more of these things, and it's not hurting me, and it's helping me. So, but sometimes to get to that point first, you have to go through that whole neuroadaptation thing. And if you don't give yourself enough time to do it, and it might take 3 weeks, it might take 3 or 4 months. I think you need to make it. For myself, I shouldn't say you, but for myself, I had to make a really serious effort to get there. And then it was, there's certain things that the dates are a big trigger for me. And Susanna, you're absolutely right. They weren't in the beginning, but in the beginning, because I was eating things that were much more high calorie, of a higher calorie density than dates. But once those things were gone, then dates, nuts and seeds and dates became a problem,
And worse when they're together.
And much worse when they're together, because then you've got that fat plus the sugar, and then boom, it's like, I mean, for me, it was like a, little bomb going off in my head. And AJ, I've never had a berry. Is it a berry date?
BAHRI. It tastes like a candy from my childhood made by Kraft. It actually tastes like eating a caramel.
Oh gosh, it's like I won't even try that, because I can get into medjool dates with no problem.
Yeah, medjools don't do them for me for some reason.
And see, that's what we're talking about. Each of us is different.
Yeah.
So, AJ can have those around. If I have them around, they're problematic for me. And yeah, so.
Yeah, I can tell you that the food I added in is not a fat. It's a processed grain. So to me, the thing that really grosses me out nowadays is oil. It's actually the thing that cured me of my peanut butter liking. I was never addicted, but any kind of peanut butter, even if you put peanuts in one of those blenders at your natural food store, it's like really gross. It's just completely oily. I do on occasion have some peanuts. We have a Thai salad called Meng Kum every once in a while, and it's made with a lot of chopped veggies and ginger, bell peppers, onion, and you usually put a couple of whole peanuts. It all goes on a big leaf of lettuce, and you roll it up, and you make some sort of a sauce for it, and it's great. And those couple of peanuts are fine. But the whole adaptation to not that feel of oil is just gross. And that, to me, that cured me of peanut butter. But
have any of you gotten PB2? Because I'm afraid of it, but I'm not afraid of it.
I got PB2. I got PB2, and you know what? I'd rather have a few real peanuts and skip the processed powder and the oily peanut butter. So if there's anything that I want a peanut flavor in, I put some real peanuts in it, and that's it. I don't know.
I got into PB2 some years ago, not recently. I don't think I've had any in, oh gosh, it's got to be at least 5 years. It was from before like several years before the pandemic. So whatever, 5, 6, 7 years ago, but I got into it, and I got into it bad. Again, it's another thing, that I get triggered very easily. There are many people who can have that stuff, and it works fine for them. You can make a sauce out of it, like a peanut sauce or something out of it. I couldn't do that. I mean, I would start eating it out of the jar. And it wasn't good, but it would just do something. It would like light up my brain. I hate saying that. It's like
it quacks like a duck.
Carrots are going to start doing me in pretty soon. No, I'm just kidding. No, carrots don't do anything to me. But yeah, it's like if I keep it simple for the most part. But what Jesse is saying is true. It's like, again, it's where AJ's always talking about the environment, and even when we say having a clean environment, it's like, what does clean mean? It's whatever it is to that individual person, because
That's exactly what I mean. Because it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, not that I want vodka here, but you could store it here. I'm not going to touch it. You know, to me, it's like what you put on your ears when you get them pierced, you know, but you're exactly right. And maybe I didn't make that clear enough about having a clean environment.
Yeah,
To
it's like if
people.
I went to a restaurant and there's like some chopped peanuts or even a couple of whole peanuts on something, you know, I'm going to eat them and I'm just going to go, ooh, this is really good because it's not something I eat regularly. And it's a, you know, it's a higher calorie density, you know, but it's, as long as I don't go home and there's peanuts or peanut butter or something sitting there waiting for me, it's not going to be an issue. If, as long as I don't think that, oh, these are so good and buy like a, you know, 2-pound bag
Right.
of peanuts on my way home, it's not going to be a problem. If I were to do that, then yeah, that's going to be an issue for me. But yeah, just having like, again, it's kind of like with the avocado, having a slice of avocado on something. If I was out somewhere or if at a friend's house, like I went to a friend's house one time and she made this beautiful, really compliant vegan meal. And she made this soup and it was a vegetable soup, but she had used like some cashews in it. And she said to me, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I forgot. Can you have cashews? And she said, and she had made a big pot and she used a quarter cup of cashews in it. And I said, yeah, I'll have some, you know, and I had some and I was fine. It wasn't a problem. If I
Right.
got home and there were cashews waiting there, a bag of cashews waiting for me, that's going to be a problem because if they're in my house, they're in my mouth.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
When
and
I,
the other thing is I get raw peanuts. I only buy raw peanuts. And they have to, if you've ever had a raw peanut, there is no way that anybody could eat those. They're absolutely awful. But they're raw and in our refrigerator until I roast them for something that I'm going to use. So, you know, I mean, there are some tricks you can do that, and these tricks don't work for everybody, and everybody needs to know themselves. You know, that's just not a, it's not a trigger for me. Dates aren't a trigger for me. I had dates that were in the refrigerator for 3 years.
Susanna, do you get into PB2 land?
Uh, you know, it's a slippery slope for me, because peanut butter is a trigger food for me. The one thing I've used the PB2 for is to make like a sauce for dipping. And then that way it's really controlled. Like I'm not drawn to the powder per se, like I wouldn't sit and eat that. But if maybe once a month or every 2 months, I might make a dish that would have like a little spring roll or something that we could dip. And then you're just making like, I don't know, like a third of a cup of sauce. And so I have done that. I also wanted to say I did get my family a Ninja Creamy for Christmas. And it's just starting to get nice here. And so we've been exploring that. And, you know, so far, I'm not finding that it's a trigger for me. And it's just thrilling to see my family embracing a can of pineapples frozen. Like, so you have to kind of look at it as your situation and your environment. Like, you know, I don't live in a clean environment. In fact, you've said to me before, AJ, that I live in a 7-Eleven, and sometimes it does feel like that. Like, especially all the stuff that's come out for dinner tonight. I left it there for when I get down there, and it's not for
That's
me.
why you're so relatable.
I don't know. You know, when I first started with you, I did hear you talk about this. I heard Dr. Lyle saying you have to work harder on your environment than you do on yourself. And I thought, darn it, I'm going to prove them wrong. You can do this in
Yeah.
a clean environment. You can. And for me, it's harder. I can't imagine one day when my kids are grown. Like my youngest is almost 17, so we're getting there. But I can't imagine one day when the whole house is clean. That will be very exciting for me. But I mean, I'm not in a rush for the kids to grow up. And in the meantime, I feel like, you know, like early on, I had a lot of regret and like pain in my heart that I had done this to my kids, that I had the very same thing that I grew up with. I had turned around and just repeated the process. And so now it's like I'm like, you know, Jim Carrey in reverse, kind of, you know, trying to unwind some of the mistakes I've made. And actually in the last 2 weeks, I've had some success just serving vegan meals. I I've kind of almost burnt out from making 2 meals several nights a week. And I was like, you know, I've got a repertoire of vegan meals that the kids, older kids now, they're older teens, but that they'll actually eat. What if I put those, so I put all of them, including the recipe or the link, in one note in my iPhone. And then I'm just, so if now I've got 7 or 8 in there, and I'm just rotating through those and making those. And I've done it for 2 weeks. And funny thing is, what my youngest said the other night at dinner, he said, I'm on to you. I know what you're doing. But it's working, and it's just taken me a really long time. I know I'm a very slow project.
People, Jesse, people are asking what your secret food is. I don't think it's that. I don't think it's going to trigger anyone except maybe Tony the Tiger.
Okay, it's fruit sweetened cornflakes that I eat with blueberries, and I can now once again eat bananas. I couldn't eat bananas because they gave me heartburn. And after a month of cornflakes, I realized I could add blueberries. So I eat cornflakes with soy milk. I realized I could add frozen blueberries. And then one day I thought, well, you know, I haven't had heartburn now for 6 weeks. I'll throw in a banana and see what happens. And
If I ever have a GI doctor on again, like Dr. Nedley, we have to ask, what is it? Because that's really interesting to me that there's something in it. Because I know that when I used to have heartburn, you know, it used to be great. We're like saltine crackers.
And for me, grains usually were a killer. The only reason I mentioned this to AJ, the only reason that my husband went with oat flakes, I went with corn flakes, because oats gave me heartburn, right? So I wasn't going to try oat flakes because, because the cereal is worse than, I couldn't eat oatmeal. I could eat oat groats and that was it. Even steel cut oats gave me heartburn. Bananas gave me heartburn. Almost everything gave me heartburn. So anyway, we go to the store, and this is after the candy binge on December 7th. And we're going, okay, we got to get something that's going to keep us from doing the dessert thing, which leads us down the path to destruction. And we had been watching reruns of Seinfeld. And I don't know if any of you remember, but Seinfeld always had that cereal cabinet in his kitchen. And we walked into our natural food store, and in the first aisle, there's all these cereals. And we looked at the cereals, we looked at each other, and we said, well, let's give cereal a try, but let's get the best cereal that we can in terms of, no sugar, no salt, no fat, right? So I picked out these plain fruit juice sweetened cornflakes. He got the oat flakes from the same company. And we went home with this big bag of things. And I'm going, well, I don't really like cereal. I never was a cereal person, but corn isn't going to give me heartburn like oats. So I'll just try this, right? Because I'm going to prevent myself from saying, oh, let's go get some Newman oats after, at 11 o'clock at night. And it worked. And then after a while, I realized that I wasn't having heartburn. And then I had skipped a day. I didn't have cornflakes because I'm not all that crazy about them anyway. And I got heartburn. And I'm thinking, well, that's weird. So, that's what it seemed to be. It seemed to be tied to the cornflakes. And then I added in the blueberries and the banana and cut back on the soy milk. I don't know. Here I am 4 months later and 13 plus pounds down. And the main thing is that I'm not bouncing back and forth between maybe being good for a week and then binging on cookies or cake. I mean, it's vegan. That's not the issue. The issue is it's fat and sugar, but mostly it's all that fat. Mm-hmm. And the cornflakes have got no fat and very low sodium, and so, and now
are they made by Barbara's? I think I've seen Barbara's.
It's not Barbara's, it's Nature's Harvest, I think. And they're fruit juice sweetened, and that's the ingredients. It's cornmeal, corn flour, and pear juice, I think.
Interesting. You said you had a dessert, something on December 7th of last year.
Oh God, no, we binged on a box of candy.
Right. Well, December 7th is Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day. So now that can be dessert, non-compliant dessert Remembrance Day.
Right. Really. And December 8th was when, so we're a little short of 4 months and feeling very happy about what we've accomplished. I am just amazed that I don't want dessert. This isn't even just, oh, I'm holding myself back. I have not wanted it. That has not been what has been, in my thoughts of desire for food.
Jesse, do you think that's because you've taken it out of season? Is that how you're kind of viewing that? Or
well, that must be it, because you don't neuroadapt to not having sugar. Right. And of course, corn flakes are a more glucose dense product than corn on the cob, right? So something else is going on. I mean, being able to stay away, not just for a week or 2 weeks, but for a month and then for 2 months, and, and nothing succeeds like success. Losing weight and not feeling deprived and not feeling like I'm fighting myself constantly was a real motivator to just go with this.
It's interesting. I Googled this and it said that on the reflux diet, cornflakes was something that was recommended.
Really?
Yeah.
Does it say why?
Doesn't say why, but it's on the allowed foods for reflux. I don't know the why, but it's actually appeared on this thing. And that's kind of cool.
That's weird. I had Googled cornflakes and, GERD and this, that, and the other, and I had not run into that. The only thing I had read, and I mentioned this to Dr. Lyle, was that corn actually produces some sort of an acid muting effect in the stomach, but that was whole corn, not corn flakes. So I really couldn't make any sense of it, and he had never heard of anything like that. So he was curious to see what would happen, down the road. Was this just some sort of a temporary fluke, weight-wise and heartburn-wise, or, and I have to say it's not. If it wasn't a temporary fluke. So
nice. What I find interesting is when you stopped eating it, that the heartburn came back.
That's that was really interesting.
Yeah, that's really interesting to me. Wow.
Yeah.
So one of the viewers is saying, can you talk about what you eat for vegetables for breakfast? And that's another way I'm not perfect.
Oh, God.
I don't eat vegetables for breakfast anymore.
I do.
Because I eat vegetables with my first meal, but I'm not trying to, it's been over 10 years since I've maintained this lean weight. So I don't follow the principles of ultimate weight loss anymore for the most part. I'm not doing the things that we talked about, earlier. I'm not, eating oils and animal products and nuts and seeds, but I don't need to eat a pound of vegetables before I eat my first meal. I don't want my weight to get any lower. So I eat my pound of vegetables at my first meal at lunch, which is usually between 12 and 1, with my gigantic Hannah yam, which weighs about 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds. But I'm not trying to preload on vegetables. I'm not trying to lose weight anymore, but I don't eat something sweet first, like fruit or just something starchy. I'm still eating plenty of vegetables, but I'm not eating like 4 pounds of vegetables anymore. I'm barely getting in 2. Have you guys noticed any changes in how you eat now versus when you started?
I misunderstood when you said vegetables for breakfast. I thought you meant vegetables with breakfast.
Yeah,
I don't eat vegetables. Yeah, I don't do vegetables before breakfast either. I never have. Yeah. We weren't. I love vegetables and have been eating them since 1973. So when we found your program, it wasn't a question of learning to love vegetables. And so for me, it was just like, okay, so my breakfast is now going to be broccoli with oat groats. And what I do is I saute or steam a variety of vegetables. I make a sauce or not. A lot of times it's just vinegar and mustard, in with the saute. And I've cooked up 4 quarts of oat groats, and we serve our vegetables over our oat groats, and we have a meal, and that's it. We don't preload on the vegetables and then have something afterwards, and it's all savory. I'm not doing a sweet oatmeal follow-up to a vegetable prelude. So I do vegetables for quote unquote breakfast every morning. It's somewhere between noon and 3. And then depending on when we have that first meal, our second meal could be anywhere from 5 to 8. And we're up late, midnight. I
love that, a vegetable prelude. So I know that when you started, you thought I was out of my mind suggesting people eat vegetables for breakfast.
I love it.
I do.
Yeah.
And
I
I've grown to love it. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking to me. Go ahead,
thought
Susanna.
you were
Well,
talking to me. Who were you talking to?
either of you, but I know that Zena, you were in my in-person program, and you
Yeah,
were
and I
because
I
we were
refused
all,
to do it. I refused to do it for 2 years. I would not do it. I was like, I'm not. It's like, I love you, AJ. I'm not doing that. I was just like horrified by the thought of it. And of course that changed, and I did get on board with that. And I have found I still like to do vegetables for breakfast, or at least having the vegetables with, if I don't have them before the starch, I feel better if I have them with the starch.
yeah,
Okay,
with the starch.
with the starch. So it's either or. Some days it depends. If I happen to wake up more hungry than normal, then I might. What I've been doing lately, and this seems to be working really well for me, is I've been prepping a salad, like a really, really big salad that I can eat over two meals, 2 or 3 meals. It's like I'll either make 3 okay size salads, 2 really good size salad, or 1 humongous salad, which would be hard for me to just eat in a single meal. So I'll eat half of that, and if I'm feeling kind of hungry, before I finish it, I will mix in some cooked rice or some cooked potatoes or something of that nature, and then eat the rest of my salad with the starch. And if I do that at every meal, where I'm having vegetables and some starch at every meal, but I'm having enough of both, it just feels better to me. Because then, like, the next thing I'll do is I'll eat some steamed or cooked, like sauteed, like water sauteed greens and onions and garlic and mushrooms, sliced mushrooms. I'll make like a big batch of that, and I'll put that on top of the starch, and I'll eat the vegetables with the starch. And if I find for myself, if I do a lot more than the other, it doesn't seem to work as well for me, because I'm either not taking enough. It's really easy for me to eat starch. I have no problem with that whatsoever. It is harder for me to get in my vegetables every day. And if I slip up a little bit on that, that's when I start getting wishy-washy and having problems. So as long as I'm just trying to get in plenty of vegetables and plenty of starch, things go a little bit better for me.
Well, I find if I don't eat vegetables, I don't poop. I mean, like, even Dr. McDougall says 90% starch. I mean, I got to have the veggies. They're like the most important thing.
Right.
Getting things moving more than the fruit and more than the starch for me. But I think the question is, like, what kind do you eat? And when I started out on January 2nd, 2012, I needed to make them as delicious as possible. Like, now steamed broccoli is fine. I think it tastes great, but I was doing balsamic Dijon glazed Brussels sprouts, the oven roasted ratatouille, the pizza kale, the lip smacking mouth watering kale. I was putting out all the bells and whistles just to learn to eat the vegetables to get those thylakoids. But now I genuinely can eat just steamed vegetables, Brussels sprouts, broccoli. I don't have a problem with it. But when I was starting out, it had to taste really, really good. And that's the problem. I think about Jack LaLanne. His wife, Elaine, just turned 98. I'm trying to get her back on the show. And one of the things he said, if it tastes good, spit it out. And not that we literally have to do it, but if, for me, like, when things start tasting too good, like that restaurant food last week, I'm like, I don't know, I worry about it, because I don't want to ever get too cocky or too confident, because, I weighed 70 pounds more than I weigh now, and I don't want to go back there ever. Then I'm cheap and I'd have to buy new clothes. So I'm just very cognizant of things, But Susanna, you were at Rancho with me, and you're going to be coming again. And I saw how you eat, and I don't think you were eating that way just to show off, like,
I don't think I could have lasted a whole week at Rancho eating that if I wasn't eating that regularly at home. No, like Zena, I was very resistant to eating vegetables in the morning, and I thought you guys were crazy that you said that your food tasted so good. I was like, this is horrible, and I didn't eat hardly any vegetables, maybe some carrot sticks at dinner. Like, I didn't grow up that way, and I didn't do that throughout my life, was eating vegetables. And now I have these massive plates of vegetables. So my pattern is actually still pretty much the same as even when I started with you, AJ, as I chop up a bunch of veggies in the morning. And, like, for me, pretty much every day there's a zucchini in there and a bell pepper and a big handful of mushrooms and maybe some fennel and some leeks. Jesse got me going on those. Let me think what else there was today. There was broccoli and I heat up a pan. I've got a ceramic cast iron. So it's like cast iron then covered with ceramic. And I get it really good and hot, like medium high. And once it's hot, I just put all those veggies in there and let them sizzle for about a minute. And then I just go through with a wooden spoon and it seems to come off because the right away the juices have started to release. And so as soon as I do that and do that initial stir, then I take a big bag of either kale or spinach and I heap up as much as I can. I actually put a picture on the forum in the course this morning of my vegetables today, and it's like this mound that I'm kind of balancing and trying to make sure it all stays in. And then I put the lid on and I set my Alexa for 5 minutes, and then I come back and I stir it once and then give it another 5, and it's usually done. So I still am eating vegetables for breakfast, but I eat mine, or it's my first meal of the day, which I guess is why we call it breakfast, because we're breaking our fast.
Break fast.
Right.
I'm not eating it at 8 in the morning. And you know,
Right.
that was something new for me too, is to not go straight to food in the morning. And I find I do well when I exercise in the morning. I like to ride my bike. So often, you know, I'll get out on my bike or on a spin bike at that time on an empty stomach, just a glass of water. And then, so I'll have, my big dish of vegetables. It's probably 1.5 pounds, but I mean, I'm 5'11". I'm very tall and broad shouldered. I have big wrists and, you know, so I eat a lot of food. And then usually right after I go straight into a bowl of oat groats. I mash in a banana for sweetness. I just really love sweet. And, you know, I know some people just go more for the savory, but that's always been my thing, is sweet. And so I'm telling you, a bowl of oat groats with banana and then lots of berries tastes like cake to me now. And I remember you guys saying that and thinking like, you're crazy. There's no way this is like cake. And it really is now. Like, I look forward to that every day. And, you know, recently for someone I was working with, I thought, you know, I'm just going to measure this out. And so I showed her, like, it actually ended up being 2 cups of cooked oats. It's a lot of food, you know, but that will take me often the whole day. And something that I've been working on in the last couple months since I heard Dr. Scharfenberg on your show in, was it November or December for his birthday? And he was talking about snacking. And I was like, okay, that's like the next level of thing I want to unlock for me, is I want to eliminate snacking. And so, you know, I try to get from my 11 or 12 first meal through to around 5 o'clock, which is when I have my dinner feast.
Nice. So, you know, there's a question, and let me read it to you guys. From Honeybee, can you discuss the place of hydration? When you're eating enough produce and you're not having salt and processed food, you almost don't need to drink, or you don't need to drink very much. I drink my pot liquor in the morning. It's in the purple thermos. And then I drink an equal amount of water. And then I pretty much don't really drink very much the rest of the day. I don't feel like I need to.
I drink a lot of herbal tea.
Yeah.
I just really like it. And in my former life, I used to be addicted to caffeinated tea. And so that was a big process for me to get off of caffeine. But by getting off caffeine, I sleep better. Like, I thought I'm 57. So I thought that me not being able to sleep was just a thing from menopause, because all my friends around the same age are having trouble sleeping. I sleep like a log now. Like, it's and you know, was able to get myself off of melatonin to sleep. Like it was just such a vicious cycle. I needed melatonin to sleep. Then in the mornings, I was so sluggish, I couldn't get up out of bed. Nobody would call me before 9. I was never up before 9. All my life, all through my years of obesity with my kids, I never got up before 9. I was a real sleepy gal. And so I'd get up and I'd have my couple of pots of tea throughout the day, like full caffeinated black tea. And then I could never connect the dots of why I couldn't sleep at night. So.
Well, after stopping, I mean, at one point in my life, I was a 3-pot a day coffee drinker. I worked graveyard shift for 8 years. And, you know, even though you should theoretically be sleeping during the day, that hardly is the way it works for a lot of us who work graveyard, because that's when the rest of the world's alive and doing things. I cut back on the coffee, you know, over time, and then stopped drinking coffee. And I thought that my sleeping problems were due to something else. I didn't connect it to caffeinated tea for a long time. I was drinking green tea, thinking, you know, that was okay. But even that, even just 1 or 2 cups a day, it turned out that that was actually giving me problems sleeping. So cutting out the caffeine completely was, you know, and I do like herbal tea, and I have a couple of cups a day, and I'm a big water drinker. I just always have been. I don't know. I like water, but I don't, it's not like I feel like I need it. And if there are times where something's going on and I don't get any water, it's not like I miss it. You know, like AJ was saying, we get so much liquid water in what we eat. It just, my husband's not a water drinker at all, and he's doing fine.
Yeah, I'm like you guys too. It's like I think with all the vegetables and the wet starches and fruit and all of that, it's just got so much you know, water content in it. When we eat drier foods, I think that's when we really need to drink a lot more water. We're having to add it back in. But I read a long time ago and heard it, and you know, from Dr. McDougall and other sources also, that when we dry out foods, like for example, if we were to take some raisins, like 20 raisins and 20 grapes, and if we ate the raisins and drank the water, the same amount of water that were pulled out of the grapes, but you know, and we did that, that water passes through us very, very quickly. But the water that would be in the whole grapes would stay in our system longer, because it's, you know, it's tied up with the fiber and everything else in there. So it stays through our system, in our system longer. So I will drink a couple of glasses. And when I'm saying a couple of glasses, I'm talking like maybe 12-ounce glasses, a couple of those a day. I'll have maybe some herbal tea during the day. And then, you know, sometimes I'm eating soup. Sometimes I'm eating, you know, I'm eating fruit, I'm eating vegetables and wet starches. And so that's probably where the rest of my hydration comes from. You know, maybe I don't know that I ever necessarily drink more than like 4 glasses of water per day, but I might be getting a little bit extra with some herbal tea or something. So,
yeah. And also it depends, you know, when I lived in the desert, I think I drank more than when I live in this tundra now. So I'm cold all the time. So that, you know,
just looking at you guys.
So one of the things I started doing, and I just started doing it last month, and I thought, oh my God, this is, you know, one of the things I learned from Dr. Lyle is that nobody's really, and maybe I don't want to say nobody because there's always outliers, but the people that say they're sugar addicts are generally sugar fat addicts. They're not eating Jesse's fruit juice sweetened cornflakes with berries. Right. They're not eating Twizzlers and Sweet Tarts and Smarties. I mean, maybe there's some exceptions, but I think in all the years and all the thousands of people I've worked with individually in groups, there was one person, she had, you know, she struggled with hard candy, but I don't think it was even the fat-free kind of hard candy like Jolly Ranchers. It was like Werther's, so there was some milk in it and things like that, right? So because sugar, fat, and salt don't appear together in nature, at least not in any concentrated form. There's no food with sugar and fat, or fat and salt, or fat and sugar, or sugar, fat, and salt. And so I'm on this sushi kick now. I don't know how long it's going to last, but one of my favorite parts of the sushi is the pickled ginger, and the pickled ginger has sugar. And so I did an exhaustive search, and there is one brand by Eden that makes it without sugar, but it's barley malt, and it's really still sugar. Right. And it's way more expensive, and it had way more sodium than the one that I'm using. And I use about 1/4 of a jar. So what am I getting? I don't know. Am I getting 10 grams of sugar? The thing is, you know, I mean, I feel like if people knew, you know, like they'd kick me out of the club. But, you know, one day I'm going to learn to make it. But even when I learned to make it from Chef Julia Dunaway, which won't be till June 20th of this year when she's on the show, am I really going to sit there and do it? Like, at the beginning, I was perfect in air quotes. In other words, I made my own sauerkraut. I made my own kimchi. I did everything. But you know what? Cost benefit analysis, time, money, it's not worth it to me anymore. And the thing is I did it because I was, a lot of people do things out of fear, and that's no way to do things, that because I was so afraid of going back to my former weight or, having Goldhammer look down his nose at me, but it wasn't sustainable. And that's the thing. It has to be sustainable, and you have to do it out of joy and wanting to be healthy rather than fear that you're going to gain weight or have Dr. Schmo or Dr. Joe, not follow his protocol. That's the thing. I find it so curious that people follow doctors and that aren't their doctor. Like, it's just weird to me, like, that you would follow somebody on social media and if they're not treating you medically, because everybody is a unique individual,
Well, I love Dr. Goldhammer, and I love his hard-ass approach to, getting real about what you're eating and what it's doing to you. But I don't think that there's any problem, even with a little white sugar. And Dr. McDougall, of course, has that same approach. And from what I can tell, the way I've been eating for the last 4 months, there really isn't a problem, at least for me. So when I was commenting and conversing with people in the chat, whenever anybody asked a question, I would answer with an answer from the program, because I don't know people's individual abilities, proclivities, weaknesses, whatever. So I think that starting with the program is the way to go, and being as strict as you can be with yourself and still being able to stick with the program comfortably is what people need to do. But if you have gotten to a point where, and not for ego trap reasons, so I'm not talking about, it's an excuse to kick over the cart because you can't be perfect. But if you are finding that you're not succeeding at whatever goal you've set for yourself, even though you're focusing on the process, if the process is not getting you there, then you need to revise your opinion of the process and come up with something that works for you within the program. And I think I was misinterpreting where I needed to be. And I was afraid, on the one hand, to give myself that leeway. And on the other hand, I was failing so spectacularly that I was completely destroying any progress that I had made. So I'm really happy and comfortable with this. But to me, this is not only the way I want to eat, but it is the way that I think is the healthiest for us. And by this, I mean Chef AJ's program.
Nice. So if you guys have any questions, put them in the chat. If you guys like us, let us know if you want to come back, and we can talk about any topic you want. I love these hangouts because these girls are my friends, and it gives me a chance to spend some time seeing them. Yeah, Dominique's mentioning, I like Dylan Holmes thinking no nutrient trace chasing. And there's a wonderful video, and it's about 10 minutes long. And I could maybe search if somebody else talks for a minute and put it in the chat. I think you've seen it for sure, Zena. Dr. Lyle was interviewed, I think, on Potato Strong's channel, and he said, you don't even have to worry about that your body makes or recycles nutrients. And so she never watches my show, but I have a dear friend, and she's afraid of everything. She's afraid of white rice. She's afraid of all rice because of the arsenic. She's afraid of white potatoes. She's afraid of a microwave. And it's like, I don't want to live my life in fear. And, the older I get and the more I see what really causes people to live a long life, which the number one reason is genetics, because there's a lot of people that are living long and eating like crap, even smoking, all those kind of things. I realize, is it really, do I need to be that strict? Like, who am I trying to impress? Goldhammer, you know? So anyway,
The
do the
video-
yeah, we need t-shirts that say do the least restrictive program you
Yeah.
can do that'll get you the results you seek. But like, I think there's nothing wrong with trying to set the bar high in an experimental situation. You know, that's what you see this, they come and like, I'm going to be perfect and I'm going to do everything. No, that's not, you're not going to be, look, we've all had slips and slides and relapses and accidents. But one of the things I think is very useful for people, and I know, I don't know if you've experienced the water fascina, but I know if you've experienced going to True North, is that if you can go there, whether it's to water fast or not, everything that we're saying to you makes infinite sense, and your perspective of food just changes. Because when you go without food, and I did my water fast last year, everything they feed you there tastes like manna from heaven. And they say the first food that I had that was starch, because you don't go from no food to, you know, like grains and beans right away. You have to kind of work your way up. So the first thing you get is generally a juice, like that might be like a diluted juice with like celery and watermelon. And then you get watermelon chunks. And boy, those watermelon chunks like were like the best thing I ever tasted. And then you get some steamed zucchini. But I remember the first thing that I had that had some starch in it was that soup that literally was zucchini and Yukon Gold potatoes. And I've kept eating that every day since I've been there. As I eat that for my lunch, because I'm not a big salad person because of my TMJ, even when I cut it small. But that it's like the most, I just remember it being like, oh my God, this is the most delicious thing I ever ate. Because when you haven't eaten for a few days, it is the most delicious thing you ever ate. And it's so much easier to get off the sugar, fat, and salt. But not everybody, you know, I know can do that. But if I could give you that gift of True North, because that's where I learned everything. All I'm basically teaching is, you know, you say Chef AJ's program. Well, it's really Dr. Goldhammer's diet and the McDougall program for maximum weight loss. That's all it is. And I agree with you, Zena, that the McDougall program, if you haven't read the Starch Solutions, start there, start somewhere. And if you read the Starch Solutions, like, well, you know, I'm not so good with a little bit of sugar or flour salt, then do the McDougall program for maximum weight loss. You know, and the thing is then when you have like a slip or a slide, you go from maximum weight loss to Starch Solution. You're not going from here to here.
The 21-day programs, though, that's where it's important for you to do your very best, because that's what's going to give you, I think, the motivation and the strength to continue. Is if you can. So, you know, I mean, AJ says this at the start of every program. Do what we're asking for 21 days. You know, Goldhammer and Lyle say the same thing. You can do this for 3 weeks. You know, and we pretty much all can do that. And it really is a huge incentive, and, you know, a notch in your belt. And, you know, it's what you need to keep going and to review what you've been doing with your health and your life. And, you know,
yeah,
it's really important to stick with it for those 21 days.
Yeah, or do the best you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You look like you're going to talk, Susanna. You went like this.
I keep doing that today. I don't know why. But it just makes me think what Jessie just said there is like that internal audience feeling of a little bit of success. That's what got me going was that whatever my, you know, first I did a summit and just watched and learned and listened. And then I did a course with AJ, and it was just doing all the things and doing it as we were instructed and not fighting it. And is what gave me those my internal audience. I could start to hear it. I could start to feel that cheering inside. It sounds kind of corny, but it actually worked. It actually works for me. And I think that, that's one of the things that I really value in my now maintenance phase. Like I was just thinking about 2 days ago, I did my husband and I did like a pantry clean out kind of organization for spring, moving some stuff around. And I found a box of chocolates that had been in there. And, you know, it's like you just have that moment, and it's like, you're going to go and have one. And you know what I did? I put them in the sink and I put on the hot water really fast. And it was actually my friend Colleen that taught me that a couple of years ago when I was new. I had this free bag of chocolates. And I was like, oh, I really hate to get rid of them. And she said, just throw them out. And I was like, yeah, but then I know that they're there. They're right there in the garbage. And I have done that. I have eaten food out of the garbage. So, I hate to admit that, but I knew that it had to get destroyed. I had to ruin the chocolates, and it happened this week again. So AJ, you've used that expression that I think is from AA, is that your addictions are over in the corner doing push-ups, and they are. They definitely are for me.
Or if you can't, like, because throwing it away isn't enough, because most of us have eaten from the trash, like on Sex and the City, but kitty litter too, or putting it down the garbage disposal. Those are good techniques as well. There's a question from Annie. My daughter gets hives from dates. Are there any other healthful sweeteners? Any fruit can be a sweetener. Bananas can be a sweetener, ripe bananas, any dried fruit. Can she have other dried fruits? I would ask. You can. Patty says, a very informative and enjoyable conversation. Would love another discussion with you all. If we can start doing this once a month, we will. Oh, here's a hi, Colleen. I wish you were coming back to Rancho with us. Jessie, Colleen says, what gave you the idea to eat the cereal to help your heartburn?
That was a completely unexpected. I was not eating cornflakes to heal my heartburn. I had no idea that was going to happen. The cornflakes were strictly the thing that I was planning on eating in the evening after dinner if I got a craving for cookies, cake, sweets, where my husband and I would sit here, and instead of talking each other out of doing something like going out to the store and getting something, we would say, well, gee, if you really want this, I really want this, well, let's just go get this. So the cornflakes were to ward off those cravings for after dinner sweets. That was my weak time of the day. And it was the same for my husband. The heartburn was something that I accidentally discovered was apparently related to eating the cornflakes. There was no plan. I have not read anything that indicates that it would be helpful for this, but it was for me. And I don't think there's any question about it because nothing else explains it. It's the only thing I changed in December.
That's cool. Here's a question from a live viewer. Where did it go? Named. Oh, all the moderators are here, so I have to look at the chat myself. And I realize how. Okay, Evie wants to know, do you guys care whether or not your fruit and veggies are organic? Sometimes I just want a good-looking bag of grapes, but the organic ones are so expensive. So we can all answer this. This is, again, another example of perfection. And I don't know if you guys look at the comments when I post stuff, but people are like, I can't believe you ate something that was not organic, or I can't believe, you bought the shredded carrots. Don't you care about the plastic? I'm not perfect. I've never aspired to be perfect. I feel that the amount of good that I've done in the world, being vegan for 47 years and saving that many animal lives and doing 2,000 free shows, I feel that outweighs some of the areas that I'm not perfect. I used to go on cruise ships. I know that there's a whole thing now, like how bad they are for animals in the environment. I didn't know that at the time. And then that was taught to me and I stopped doing it. There's an old saying, when you do better, when you know better, you do better. But here's the thing. I do live in the real world, and even though I am a bit hyper conscientious and for sure a nutcase, I don't worry about that, because having seen the trajectory as I get older of the life of the people around me that are living long and the people that have died, like in my family, it wasn't because they ate white rice. It wasn't because they cooked their potato in an air fryer and developed acrylamide. It wasn't because of sugar and salt. It wasn't because of, not eating a Brazil nut or having an ounce of nuts a day or not eating beans. I know now from Dr. Lyle that the number one predictor of how long you live is genetic. How well you live, then you have control over that with your diet. And the thing is the amount of worry I see my friend go through to be perfect with her nutrient chasing. It's like, I don't want that kind of stress, And so that's not to say that I don't buy organic, but I don't worry about it, because if I was 100% organic, I would never be able to eat at somebody's house. I would pretty much never be able to travel unless I was always in control of my food, or eat at a friend's house or eat at a restaurant. I am more concerned if I'm going to seek organic, And I do buy a lot of organic. And the reason is because I think a lot of times it tastes better, not all the time. I can't find any difference in taste between an organic banana and a non. And I've tested it like blind taste tests. So I don't worry about that because I'm not making banana bacon peel or banana bacon peel. I'm not eating the skin. And the same thing with an avocado. But with things that I have seen on the Dirty Dozen, I'll be more apt to buy organic. But even then, I don't worry about it. I really, really don't. When I'm buying an apple at the store, I'm looking for the best looking one. I'm very picky with my apples, and sometimes it's organic when the store has organic envy, but I'd rather eat a non-organic envy than an organic Honeycrisp. That's just me. So there's a thing called the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen put out by EWG, environmentalworkinggroup.org, and I kind of go by that. My broccoli is always organic because it tastes better, the Trader Joe's organic, but I don't worry about it. I really, really don't. And if you want to be 100% organic all the time, that's fine, but I don't worry about the microwave, the air fryer, the Instant Pot, acrylamides, nutrients, selenium, getting my wheat. Now every time a famous doctor writes a new book, there's 21 more things we're supposed to include every day. I would go crazy. And,
Right.
And I don't drink coffee even when it comes, you could drive yourself crazy. This is like a full-time job. Yeah. It's like Jill says, do the best you can, do your best and bless the rest. And,
Yeah.
you are human for what I can tell, unless you are. Do you guys watch my favorite show? This is Resident Alien. That is my favorite show of all time. 3rd season, last episode this week. So yeah, that's me with organic. I don't worry about it. I worry about a lot of things in life, my health, the health of my dog, finances, but I don't worry about all these things that have made me imperfect over the years. And I'll let y'all ladies answer that about your organic experience.
I'm the same way as AJ. I don't worry about it. If it's on sale and it looks good and it's about the same price as the conventional, yeah, I'll buy it. Sure, of course. I learned some years ago that organic vegetables, organic produce can still be sprayed with up to like 100 chemicals, 100 different chemicals. Not that each kind of organic is going to be sprayed with 100 chemicals, but there's 100 different chemicals that can be sprayed on organic produce and it can still be called organic. So I'm not even sure if I was buying organic, is it truly organic unless it's growing out in my backyard? And I only have a couple of small tangerine trees. So those are the only organic things I ever happen to know for 100% that they're going to be organic. So it's not something I worry about. AJ, the video that you were talking about by Dr. Lyle, it's about a 10-minute clip and it's called Our Nutrient Obsession, Stop It Now. So if somebody wants to go into YouTube and search for that, they can find it. If somebody's in FFOF, I have a list of some of my favorite Dr. Lyle videos called Wisdom from Dr. Lyle. They can find it's one of the ones that's in there, but it's called Our Nutrient Obsession, Stop It Now. And it's a really good one. And it's really funny because people when they start changing their diet, all of a sudden they start worrying about all these like little things, and again, you said it perfectly. If I did nothing else except go 100% organic, I would not have achieved the health gains that I achieved.
Right.
I would still be overweight. I'd still be having probably on a bag load of pills and things would not have gotten better. So that's not one of the things I worry about. I also do not worry about the other things that you were making, where you're saying these, and I'm like, yeah, I don't worry about that either. I don't worry about that. I don't worry about the rice. I don't worry about the and rice is not the only grain that can have arsenic on it, so like what if I stop eating rice for arsenic, that means I'm going to have to stop eating like all the other grains as well. It's like, I've already stopped eating certain things and I'm not really willing to stop eating.
How many funerals have you been to for people with acrylamide poisoning and arsenic poisoning and omega-3 fatty acid deficiency from not
or protein deficiency, for crying out loud? That's another one, right? And so so I don't worry about those things either. And if I want to use my air fryer, I use my air fryer. If I want to, I use my micro. Somebody asked a question. I can't even remember what board or forum it was on, but somebody was asking what cooking appliance do you use the most? Mine is my microwave. I use my microwave daily. I know some people hate microwaves. That's fine. Don't use it. I'm going to use it. So I use a pressure cooker. I use my Breville air fryer, and but I use my microwave the most, so I'm not really that worried. And organic, like I said, with organic, like some things there are like I'll go and I'll get these like little baby sugar plum tomatoes from Trader Joe's, and they come organic, but that's the only ones I find there. So I buy those that, they're organic ones, and that's fine. But I generally just don't worry about it too much. So
right. Colleen's saying, I go by the dirty dozen as someone with cancer. I don't want those chemicals. And I respect everyone's choices. I mean, in a perfect world, we'd all be perfect. And she has different motivations for wanting to do that. And that's fine. But the thing is you can't beat yourself up for when you can't be perfect. You know what I'm saying? Or you can, but I'm not sure how useful that is. So the thing is,
I do buy organic oats though, because what are oats sprayed with that's really bad?
Glyphosate.
Well,
Yes,
they're sprayed with Roundup is essentially what they're sprayed with.
So for some reason that got into my head, and I do almost like 100% buy organic oats. So if I couldn't find organic oats and I really wanted some oats, I would probably either wait, or I might buy them not organic. But usually that's about like one of the only things that I kind of, and I don't even know if I'm justified, for doing that. It's just something a friend of mine was just kind of drumming into my head some years ago. And I'm like, okay, I'll just get the organic.
That's how I feel about corn, because I've heard about corn being so heavily genetically modified. So when I'm getting my corn tortillas or corn, that is one thing I always make sure to do. But the thing is how perfect the thing is, how perfect you have to be and in what areas. So now we have to have all organic. It's just you could just go crazy.
Well, I'm not worried about organic from the perspective of being perfect. My concern about organic, and the reason that I buy organic when I can, is because of the environment and because of farmers who have to work around the chemicals, and because of what it does to the land and the water. I live in a very heavily agricultural area, so that is where it matters to me, but it's not a question of being perfect. I'm not worried about my personal health. I smoked cigarettes for 25 years. I've done a lot of things that were not healthy. I've survived them. I've made it to 71. That's a pretty good track record. If I drop dead tomorrow, I've still, I at least was fairly healthy in the last years of my life. And I'm not going to worry about eating something for myself that isn't organic. Although I'm fortunate enough to live somewhere where I can get either organic or grown without chemicals, even though not certified organic. But that's luck. That's being able to afford it in some instances. It's being able to living somewhere where I can get the stuff. But I'm not going to worry about it. It's not a question of being perfect. And it's not like I care what anybody else thinks about whether I do or don't eat organic. But I do care about people who have to work around the chemicals, work in the fields, and I do care about the environment and the animals and the effect there. So I think cumulatively, if we can do what we can, it does make a difference. But again, I would question, as Zena is, just what does USDA organic mean as compared to California certified? It's a whole different level of what's allowed. So the word organic in and of itself doesn't mean what we think it means a lot of times. So again, don't miss the forest for the trees.
Just like Dr. McDougall, I have the privilege, actually, since the pandemic, when he took his program online, to do the cooking demonstration. And so I get to kind of eavesdrop on a lot of the lectures. And they always talk about these things are not deal breakers, the white rice, if you have a reason to not want to have them, that's fine, but they're not deal breakers. And like Zena said earlier, so many people just did the regular McDougall program and have had tremendous success. You know what I was thinking? It's so weird. I don't know if any of you guys can relate to this. So I get the Mi Rancho tortillas, and I like the thin Credibles, not because they're lower calories, which they are, but because they're thinner. So they make crisper chips in the air fryer. And so I will cook them whole. So when I have the tostadas, we have tostadas every Tuesday, and I'll usually eat 3 of them. But when I cut them into chips, I will exponentially eat so much more. And I don't understand, because it's the exact same thing. Why is it when it's cut into 8 segments that I eat, I don't know how many, probably the whole pack, but when it's whole, they don't seem to interest me that much. Can anybody figure that out for me? Do I have to book a session with Dr. Lyle?
Yeah,
Why-
maybe. maybe it's because it's easier. They're just, you know.
I can just shove them in my mouth much more.
Yeah, because if it's a big one, it's like, you know, and it's I don't know.
But the thing is, Zena, I thought about that, and then I could also break the big one into chips, but that doesn't interest me. I don't. It's anyway. I'm a nutcase. What can I tell you? There's a very nice comment I saw. Let me try to pull that up. I saw it from Annie. Let me see. Oh, from Annie. I'm so glad you stay in the ring for those of us who don't expect perfection. We just want help. I love that you provide that so generously. Yeah, I really want to be knocked off this pedestal that people have been putting me on. And I've never been able to talk about this, not because I'm embarrassed, but because when I'm hosting my show, what am I going to do? Say in the middle of somebody's PowerPoint, Chef AJ's not perfect. Chef AJ eats sugar in one product. She eats salt in lots of products. And she eats lots of white rice. I love white rice. I cannot lie. I mean, I will always choose white if it's available. I don't care. Life's too short. I'll eat the other flavors and the other colors, but if you give me a choice, I'm going white. Yep. Nice. Chips you can eat with your hand. Yeah, there's something about the bite size. Yeah, when it's small, I just eat more of them. It's weird, huh? And you know, it's interesting because Susanna, you were saying how you're a sweet person. And look, I was too. I mean, Coke Slurpees for breakfast, Dr. Peppers for lunch. But given a choice now, I would rather eat savory than sweet. So if I still have a little bit of room left after dinner, I could have any of the desserts that I make, you know, the compliant desserts. I could have fruit, I could have Ninja Creamy. But if I got a little bit of room left, I'd rather have chips and salsa. And that's kind of new for me to have savory over sweet.
And that's where the cornflakes have worked for me, because I'm not that crazy about cornflakes, but boy, I could eat cram muffins like the entire pan, right? I mean, there were things that are compliant, but that I could not limit myself on. So there were things that were solutions for other people that weren't working for me.
That's why I think the number one thing is know thyself. Know thyself. Yeah, well, this has been fun. Any last thoughts? I know, Susanna, you got to go at 4, so we'll make sure we log off. Yeah, Tracy says cram muffins are so good. Tracy, thank you for the wonderful birthday present. I sent you what I thought was a personal email to your email, but I don't know if you got it. Yeah, Coke Slurpees. Part of me wants to taste one now, but I don't feel like it's going to draw me back in. I feel like it's going to taste very chemically if I were to ever taste one, you know?
I would think so. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you guys, it would be so good if you're, that quote by Dr. Clapper, your body's never not looking. Don't you wish sometimes it wasn't? Like just like one day a week, one meal a week, you know? My favorite apple candy is the Envy apple, followed by the Opal apple. I'm a kind of an apple snob. Yeah.
I'm a Fuji person.
Yeah, that's my song. I like white rice and Envy apples are just wonderful if you could find them. Anybody have an Envy ever? Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, you didn't send shoot. Which Tracy sent me that present? This is the thing. I just had a birthday and so many people sent me presents and they didn't say who they were from. And if you don't check that box on Amazon, Amazon won't tell you no matter what you do. So if I didn't thank you, it's because I didn't. What's Tracy? Oh my God, it's not Tracy. Now I got to figure out who I sent all those thank you notes to named Tracy. All right. That cat is adorable.
We're kittens.
She can be our mascot.
She's just visiting. We're kitten sitting for 2 kittens of a friend.
One thing I would like to say, one quick note for if anybody who's doing the 21-day program is here today watching. While you're doing the 21-day program, and we're saying I know the program says to stay to the left of the red line. The thing that we're trying to get across is that sometimes people will do, because a lot of people are still so afraid of starch, right? And starch is to the left of the red line, but they're still afraid of it. Wet starches, and they'll eat but they're not afraid of non-starchy vegetables. So they'll eat so many non-starchy vegetables at like 100 or 200 calories a pound, depending if they're raw or cooked, and then little to no starch. And they're really, really below that line, right? If you're if you don't want to get into that kind of murky ground, like to the right of the red line, it's really a good idea to make sure you're eating plenty of starch. You might even want to do something like do some air fries or whatever, which is going to actually raise the calorie density of the potatoes to a higher level, and it'll make them slightly to the right of the red line. It won't be a lot, but it'll make them, it's going to get them up to around the 700, 750 calorie per pound mark. And that's a good way to include a little bit more calorie dense food without going to things that might get you into trouble. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there. I don't know if that made sense or not, but
Yep, and people are afraid. And there, I actually saw a question about that, about somebody gaining weight. I'm trying to find it now, but people are asking if anybody eats sourdough bread. Does sourdough bread have gluten? Does anybody know?
Yeah.
It's made.
I mean, it's made out of wheat.
Yeah, so I don't, mainly for that reason, because I'm gluten intolerant. But do any of you guys eat sourdough bread? There's a question.
I don't know.
We eat Ezekiel bread occasionally, but neither of us are bread junkies, so
I am. I am a bread junkie.
Well, of course, you did your own
I
homemade
made my own
bread.
bread for over 25 years. I ground flour in my own kitchen, so I have a real problem with bread.
Everybody would be hooked on your homemade bread.
Even if you don't, Susanna, even if you don't put anything on it?
Even if I don't.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
No.
Good homemade bread, that's a different thing. Ezekiel bread, take it or leave it.
I'm a bread junkie too, and I don't make homemade bread. I do buy Arabic bread for my mother. It's pita. It's basically white pita bread is what it is.
Yeah.
It's got 4 ingredients. It's got white flour, water, yeast, and salt. I mean, that's it. That's all that's in it. And it's a store-bought pita bread that I buy for her. If I get into it, and a package has 6 pitas, and they're decent, they're decent size. They're not like huge, but they're not little tiny ones. They're like good regular size. If I get into a package of those, I will eat all 6 of them, and I'll go into another package. So I am a bread junkie. Bread is hard for me. If I got into sourdough bread, it would be a problem. But saying that, I did know a lady once who was, I think it was at the McDougall program, and she was telling Dr. McDougall that I think she had a bread company, and she would eat like some bread every day, and it actually helped her. Like she would have and it's like the bread that her company was making. I don't know if it was sour. I don't know what kind of bread it was, but she would eat like 1 to 2 slices every day, and it was fine for her. It didn't trigger her. She was able to do it, and it actually helped, kind of like what Jesse's been talking about, these fruit sweetened frosted flakes or cornflakes, not frosted flakes, sorry, cornflakes. Where that you said Tony the Tiger earlier, AJ, and now it kind of got stuck up here. So
I'm sorry.
but, it's certain people, again, know yourself, know thyself. If sourdough bread helps you stay on track, maybe that's something that works for you. So
Yep. And so I think this was the question I couldn't find, or the comment. Mary says, I learned a lot from you all. I gained 10 pounds. I was bloated. Was my body adjusting to the plant-based diet? And did I not give it enough time to adjust? So I would need to see a food diary of what you were eating before and what you're eating now. But as far as the bloating, yes, your microbiome is changing when you're eating an animal-based or a processed food-based diet to a whole food plant exclusive diet. And so, yes, I don't know how much time you gave it, but yeah, you definitely need more. And if you want to be with us in the 21-day program, there's been a link that's been posted in the chat, as well as the show notes. Of course, if you're watching on Facebook, you may not see that link. It's on YouTube. So we'd love to have you if you'd like to do that. And Florence, I'm going to get the link to the Dugathon and put that on now. So, yeah.
Can I say one thing about that last comment, AJ? I'm also curious as how long, when she said she went on a plant-based diet and she gained 10 pounds, I'd love to know the period of time, because generally speaking, when people have been restricting or eliminating complete carbohydrates, what's happened is they've completely depleted their glycogen stores. And with that, the water that comes attached to that, which is anywhere from 6 to 9 pounds, it's not fat, it's glycogen and water. And then when they start eating complex carbohydrates again, they very quickly, usually within a week or 2, gain back that same 6 to 9 pounds. And that's where people start thinking, oh, carbs make me fat. They stop eating the carbs, they lose that same 6 to 9 pounds very quickly. And oh, look, see, I know carbs make me fat, because when I stop eating them, I've lost this weight. but they have lost little to no fat. They've lost little to no fat when they're doing that, and they're not gaining fat when they eat the carbs and gain that back. So if it was over like a long period of time, like, I don't know, 6 months or something, that's a different story. But if it happened fairly quickly, that is a possible cause.
Yeah, people are talking about half a cup of flax seeds to get in their pound of greens. You know, the doctors that work with us in our programs, and even Dr. Furman has said he doesn't believe in having that much. We recommend more like a tablespoon or two. But if it's working for you, who are we to say not to do it otherwise? No, this is not the challenge, Golda. This is a course that I teach once a year. So yes, this is an actual class. So. All the chatter about a half a cup of flax. That's a hyper nourishing protocol that Dr. Brooke Goldner does with lupus and other patients with autoimmune disease. Yeah, and she's a regular on this show. Yeah, I don't care for flax. I don't use it at all. If I'm going to use seeds, I'd rather use chia. I just find flax seeds just disgusting tasting and looking, and just like sawdust. But I do use chia, like to thicken things and things like that, you know? Yeah. Well, guys, it's been great seeing you. If you guys want us to do it again, make a comment and we'll think about doing this. We haven't actually done this, I think, since, did we do it New Year's Day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, it's been a long time, a long time. So we're all in the course together. If you want to hang out with us for the next 21 days, we'll be happy to support you. And congratulations, Jessie, on finding the maybe you could start marketing this somehow, you know, the cure for reflux.
No, I'm no good at marketing.
Well, we're the three of us are in a business course together. Maybe we can come up. Yeah, Florence, I put the Dugathon information in the chat. It's on my website. So nice to see you, ladies. I'll see you on the Zoom that we have Saturday for the class, and I hope to see all of you for another live show tomorrow. It's Dr. McDougall at 10 o'clock. Take care, everyone, and remember, you don't have to be perfect. Do your best, bless the rest, and do the least restrictive program you can do to get you the results you seek. And most importantly, know thyself. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.